The Queen has kindly agreed to the dissolution of Parliament, and a general election will take place on May the 6th.
Let's get out and vote. Let's make our voices heard. We've been given the right to choose between a douche and a turd. It's democracy in action. Put your freedom to the test. A big fat turd or a stupid douche. Which do you like best?
A new world order.
The new world order.
A new world order.
There is this like cozy little myth that is perpetuated between politicians and the media. Politicians walk the world stage as if they are the final arbiters of power in the world. So when a president speaks, the cameras run and it's flashed around the world, prime ministers and such like. The media report the world as if presidents and prime ministers are the final arbiters and decision makers in the world, which means that the people above the level of presidents and prime ministers that really make the decisions, they're never looked at or exposed by the mainstream media because they're not accepted to exist.
I think the puppet on the right shares my beliefs. I think the puppet on the left is more to my liking. Hey, wait a minute, there's one guy holding up both puppets. Shut up. Go back to bed, America. Your government is in control.
It is so obvious to anyone paying attention that the President of the United States is not the real person in control.
We have three parties in this country. You can't hardly, except in rhetoric, get a cigarette paper between them. They use different words and they criticize each other, but you look at their basic policies and what they would do in power. It's precisely the same.
And of course the second issue in the minds of the British public is immigration and the lack of border controls that we have. And again, there's no straight talking from Labour, Lib Dem or Conservative.
So no unskilled worker from outside the European Union, from outside the European Union, from outside the European Union.
Well, I think we need to have not just a point system, but also a limit on migration when people are coming from outside the European Union, from outside the European Union, from outside the European Union.
We can't employ any doctors from outside the European Union, from outside the European Union, from outside the European Union.
They actually don't want the British public to know that what they signed us up to in 2004 was a total open door to the whole of Eastern Europe. The real argument is this: we cannot have our own immigration and asylum policy if we remain members of this European Union. And I know that Mr Cameron, in about 45 minutes' time, will be telling you that the Conservatives will control non-EU immigration into this country. But actually, even that, within the lifetime of the next Parliament, will go, because Commissioner Frattini in Brussels has made it clear that the EU common immigration and asylum policy will be completed within the next 2 years. So not only will we have no control over those from Eastern Europe that come, we'll have no control over those from the rest of the world that come.
David Cameron's track record on referendums isn't really terribly good, because he made a cast-iron guarantee that the next Tory government would give us a referendum on the European Treaty, and that pledge has gone somewhat rusty.
I thought Labour was going to give you one as well.
They lied as well, and so did the Lib Dems. I mean, yes, you're right.
So all three are liars.
But on this particular area,
all three are liars, are they, in the UKIP's view?
On the referendum on the European Treaty, right. Yes, they are. The absolutely.
Right. I would not trust Cameron, Clegg or Brown. I wouldn't trust them on the European question, and if they made specific promises like that they've been prepared to break, frankly, ladies and gentlemen, I wouldn't trust them with anything.
Yeah. Climate change.
Climate change.
Climate change.
Climate change. I want us to lead on the biggest challenge of all, climate change.
Why have scientists got climate change so wrong?
I think what has happened is that they have exaggerated the small grain of truth that underlies it. Yes, if you add greenhouse gases to the atmosphere, you will get warming, but you won't get very much.
The scientist behind the so-called ClimateGate email scandal now admits there has been no statistically significant global warming since 1995.
50 long years, a decade and a half. I mean, that is the most extraordinary admission.
He also leaves open the possibility, long resisted by climate change activists, that the medieval warm period from 800 to 1300 AD, and thought by many experts to be warmer than the present period, could have encompassed the entire globe.
Now I can't get onto the BBC to say what I'm saying to you. They rang up yesterday and invited me to go on the air, and then within 5 minutes they'd rung up and cancelled. And the reason why was I was going to go on to debate with the leader of the Green Party. And the moment she heard I was coming, she said to the BBC, don't let him on because he'll beat me if he comes on. Let me go on my own because I'll say what you, the BBC, want me to say.
Whether rise in temperature is happening because of CO2 emissions, we think is pretty doubtful. But what we're absolutely certain of are the billions that are being spent to tackle it simply won't work.
Let me say, first of all, my pride and my admiration for the armed forces.
I join with Gordon in paying tribute to our forces.
Oh yes, you're gonna get it.
Just the bravery.
Yes, naughty little boys.
Just humbles you every time you see it.
Oh, please, don't hurt me. Hey.
They are brilliant, brilliant people.
You little shoot at us! You little die.
Our brave servicemen and servicewomen who do the most astonishing job.
This is what depleted uranium does to Iraqi kids.
This type of ammunition is radioactive because it is made of nuclear waste referred to as uranium-238 or depleted uranium. Uranium-238 remains radioactive for 4.5 billion years, and its toxicity reveals itself as soon as particles are inhaled or ingested. Cancer and birth defects are the most common side effects.
This is what they don't want you to see. What's really happening in these wars of freedom.
Injustice anywhere is a threat to justice everywhere.
They're over there in London in one of the biggest police states in the world. I mean, you try to videotape on the street, they come over and tell you to shut it off. They don't allow protesting now. There's secret police everywhere. It is certainly like something out of V for Vendetta.
We have more cameras snooping over the British people than in all the other countries of Europe added together. This is a real police state here.
First of all, in airports, people will see gradually being brought in the use of full-body scanners.
Remember what George Bush told us why we were attacked? He said they attacked us because of our freedoms.
It is interesting to note that twice as many people die from peanut allergies a year than from terrorist acts.
Did you know in the last 30 years that more people have died in their bathtub than have died from an act of terrorism, including the spike of 9/11?
Frankly, it's a bogeyman, and only 51 people have died from terrorism in the past 10 years, as opposed to hundreds of thousands from heart disease from going to places like Burger King.
Look, this whole war on terror is a fraud. It's a farce.
Terrorism.
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 Man, I tell you, British police, they are just...
Well,
I mean, the videos I see are just unbelievable.
They got caught at G8 killing somebody, and then they faked the autopsy and had to do a second one.
No doubt about it, they've become more robotic in the sense that they can't assess a situation on its merits. It's the law, mate, so I've got to do this. You're literally, mate, talking to robots.
We're not seeing enough police on the streets.
We've got record police numbers in this country, and we want to maintain that level of police force.
More police on our streets.
And it's becoming increasingly clear that the choice the British public are being offered here is not for a change of government, but for a change of management.
Bottom line, this is the false left paradigm. It's time for people to grow up, and until you realize they own all the major parties, and until you realize the power structure, people think the president is the end-all be-all. He isn't.
People that are in positions of apparent power, like prime ministers and presidents, are actually puppets of the real power, which doesn't put itself on public display.
And then we have a debate about whoever they put out in front of us instead of never looking above that to the real power structure.
In America, those people who are understanding it, they have this phrase, it doesn't matter who you vote for, the government still gets in.
It's true, but what are you going to do about it? You have to vote for one of us,
Vote for other people. It's that simple. We have the control in our hands. All we have to do is exercise it.
Go ahead. Throw your vote away.
No, voting is not like a horse race. You're not in there to pick the winner. You're there to vote for the candidate that most represents your beliefs.
Yeah.
And so you vote your conscience and your heart. If you don't vote your conscience and your heart, then you've wasted your vote.
Don't blame me. I voted for Kodos.
Go!